Hey guys, welcome back to the Paladins Alliance. I wanted to do some Group B content now that EPL is done and dusted with Group A. We had some exciting, I would say, upsets. I mean, we were definitely not expecting to see Fnatic and Entropic to be the second and third teams, and honestly, NIP to show as good a form as they did. And that just makes Group B that much more exciting. I tweeted out about it a little bit, but I think that this group has the potential to be something very, very dangerous for teams like Vitality. And so before they actually take center stage this Wednesday, I wanted to discuss what I think their feats and flaws are thus far in their tenure, because they've been around with their new Danish-French mixed lineup for a little while. They got through their group at spring, which was a difficult situation, right? Doing it online, also a very difficult situation. And then once Katowice rolled around, it felt as though that we might have them in the running for top 8 and perhaps a dark horse to even win the tournament with the amount of polish that they already had, right? They got a win off of Mouse, who were actually looking very good at that tournament, and that's where I think Mouse lost their steam that they had. And then you got to play you got a very unlucky bracket with Heroic immediately after in the upper bracket, which would have honestly probably secured you a berth in the playoffs. But instead, they lost 2-0 due to a lot of little mistakes here and there. And then I think the game against Gambit was kind of out of their hands, especially with how much Gambit had powered up as the tournament went on. And although we didn't see that great of a performance from them in the playoff stage in the Spodek, I definitely think they were still a very good team during the actual main event. So not necessarily great bracket for Vitality, and they've never necessarily felt comfortable in this tournament, and that's completely understandable. They're still a new team. They're still working out the kinks of switching from French to English. And I want to basically talk about the best parts of Vitality and the worst parts of Vitality. And funnily enough, I think the best parts are the ones that are the most difficult things to actually get down. The fundamentals of Counter-Strike, they all have that good intuition already to get the ball rolling, and they have oodles and oodles of experience across this roster, right? That kind of fundamental stage of building the team is surprisingly going much quicker than I expected. Now, as far as the poor parts of the team, it's the obvious thing that you might think of. It's the communication that I think they're still struggling with. Situations where mid to late round, when it's a French and a Dane mixed together, what's going on with the communication? There's still a lot of things that they have to work out that I think will come through with time. And if that is ironed out, these little mistakes will slowly disappear, and then you get a world-class team, a championship contending team. And I think that Vitality is the roster that is capable of doing so, especially that since they have a lot of the roles that they needed to be checked off already. And on paper, we've discussed about it a numerous amount of times. I talked about it in my pre-2020 power rankings video, that this team has the capability of being the best team in the world. However, are they going to do so? We have to wait and see. So let's jump into some demo rounds to really accentuate what I'm talking about and explore what Vitality may offer in Group B. I want to revisit this Vitality Mouse series with a different light. Now looking at the different side of things, where Vitality is showing a lot of great signs in their CT setups. Their CT setups across their map pool that they've shown thus far have shown that they've put in the time to set things up very well. The fundamentals look very sound. I'm glad that Sonic, Apex, and I'm sure Magiska's put in some input as well to make sure that everybody on this team feels comfortable in the roles that they're playing, and they're all playing them pretty well, I'd say. And this is one of the setups that I think that they did in the old Vitality lineup that is still being effective to this day against Mouse here. And now adding that Danish experience to the lineup, it seems very impressive to see like unfold, right? And this little Zywoo ramp aggression is something that Torzy wanted to do at the tail end of this game, and this is actually how it's done, to actually get in there before the smoke plumes, or before the actual spam starts, right? So you don't have to play a guessing game. And so now that he's sitting here past that tarp spam, he can get the kill on the Frozen and then back away, right? Apex is always there as that guardian angel to spam down the ramp smoke. He loves doing that throughout all of his CT sides. And this is where, honestly, if you look at the map, Magisk is playing very passively on ramp, but dupreeh has a lot of information at the bottom of B ramp, and this allows Vitality to be a little bit more aggressive and take matters into their own hands and re-aggress down into ramp. They've done this before, again, on that the full French lineups. They love to do this with the flashback in, but they decided to do it dry here, and it works out very well because they have that information, that failsafe that, Magisk hasn't seen anything mid, dupreeh hasn't seen anything bottom B, and for that reason, perhaps that they're playing very passive and we can take some more map control and really constrict them into the map, right? So as they do that, ZywOo decides to push forward behind that nade, suggesting that Vitality is very passive in this situation. Gets the kill on JDC, a very, very good shot. And then he tries to push the issue further by getting the kill on the Torzi, and then that Apex nade is just the cherry on the top, right? And while all this is happening, this allows dupreeh to just sneak in and get that much more bottom B control, and it really leaves NBK with nothing to do in this round. Although he is the space maker for the team, he isn't able to actually create anything for the team this round and gets absolutely obliterated by dupreeh. So this CT setup is so sound by them. It shows that aggression that they had on the French lineup is still here, and they're finding that balance very well, I'd say. And they're basically allowing ZywOo to still do those big star level plays that we come to expect from him these days. I think Vitality has a lot of things going for them on the CT side. Their setups look very clean. That definitely looks like the communication's a little bit better because they have that Danes on one side, French on the other type of thing on a lot of their maps. But on this map, they're definitely trying to mix things up a little bit. I think they have Masuta and dupreeh on one side of the map, and then Magisk and ZywOo and Apex on the other. Magisk playing mid, but that the fact that they have that good understanding of how to play the CT sides is a sign of things to come. But on the T side, that synergy isn't harnessed as much, right? And that's a real problem that I have with Vitality as a whole, where they're able to get a lot of the fundamentals down, but when it gets into those mid to late round situations, they really struggle. But in this round in particular, it's a very, very good understanding of what Apex needs to do as a player, and then how Magisk and dupreeh can use that synergy they have between the two of them with the amount of experience that they have to really ignite a comeback for Vitality and win in overtime. So this round is specific. Apex decides to accompany dupreeh down into B ramp, and they decide to actually scrim through this smoke, which is bold from Apex, but this is what we love to see him do. Masuta gets spammed through a smoke down at bottom of A ramp, and this kind of forces Vitality's hand to look for something on a B ramp and basically put dupreeh's lurk into full effect, right? So they throw this Molotov off, they clear out close cubby, and this allows them to have a little bit of a 1-2 punch onto the player playing back B. So Apex goes right as soon as this molly goes off, and then Apex gets dupreeh actually gets a little bit of damage off of the left side of the double box there, and then Apex swings on the right side to get the trade. And so in this situation, you might be able to rest on your laurels here, but Apex believes he catches the timing and goes a little bit too aggressive here. But the thing about Vitality is you have a lot of players to fall back on to provide you ways back into the round. And so a move like this isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world in the great scheme of things, because it allows Apex to gather a lot of information for Magisk and dupreeh. So while all this is happening, ZywOo is pacing all the way back from A ramp all the way back to B ramp. And this allows Magisk and dupreeh to really stretch their legs here and look freaking unstoppable here, I would say. So this spacing, so they throw a flash high, and then Magisk and dupreeh spacing here is immaculate. I think this is where a situation where a new team might actually align with themselves and line up for a player to just have a double spray down here. But instead, it allows there's this perfect understanding of who's looking high to heaven and who's looking low to the boost up position on B side vertigo. And Magisk gets the kill top. dupreeh gets a kill on bottom. They both take damage, but they both get the kills, and now you're in a 3v2 situation where it's very hard to actually retake, right? So they can smoke that off. They can get a bomb plant here. ZywOo is free to clutch up here if need be. They still don't have any awareness as to where he is. And so while all this happens, they keep spamming. You know, smoke's always favor the T's, but Frozen actually gets a catch forward, but again, the kills are on point for Vitality. The trades are always there, especially with how fast ZywOo is, and it comes down to the 1v1, but again, the synergy and the communication were so on point in this round that this is the type of synergy that I want to see harnessed by Vitality more often, and we can definitely see them become a force to be reckoned with. So I wanted to showcase one last CT setup that Vitality was showing here against Heroic, and I think a big part of why I want to talk about their CT setup so much, although Haka has as well, is because the research has been done. They definitely have a very good foundational aspect to all of their CT setups, and you can clearly see that it's effective. It works very well, and for that reason, we have these crazy big halves that Vitality go on, and then they have to try to struggle to close it out on the T side. But this one in specific, although Heroic won this game 2-0, I think Vitality was still very much in this game, and that the series score is a little bit more deceptive than people might think. A lot of this hinges on ZywOo finding kills, but the way they set up ZywOo to make sure that he is safe in all of these positions is something that I'm really enjoying seeing. So obviously the common play is to allow ZywOo to go aggressive and beat the Molotov in connector and try to take a fight top mid, while you have another player, Apex, watching here for the underpass push, right? So when we move back, ZywOo misses a tough shot here, flashes back to come back to safety, and then he also decides to look down into the underpass just to make sure that there isn't anything going on there as well. Doesn't spot anything, but with this, Vitality's kind of shown their hand at the CT set, or sorry, their CT setup, and it feels as though now you can kind of play default and just wait the round out, right? You even had Dupree playing in Cat as a failsafe to trade him out, and then you also had Magisk waiting in connector as well. So there were so many different ways for Vitality to pounce on any aggression that Heroic decided to show in mid, that Vitality kind of win in this situation, right? They don't necessarily show too much of their hand, they just show that ZywOo is aggressive, and then they can play default again, right? But what I loved in this entire setup is they wait. They have basically all the sight lines into mid. They're not willing to give it up very easily. And this is what I like so much about this play, right? They allow ZywOo to re-aggress. They keep Apex up in window looking down into underpass. And then you have Magisk as well, making sure that nothing is going on ramp and nobody can just scrim out and backstab them and destroy their mid setup altogether, right? And also, have to mention that Masuto is also helping Dupree in this situation, making sure that nobody just pounces outside of apps. So it's a rock solid defense here, and of course Vitality gets rewarded for doing so. ZywOo finally gets that third shot to land, and although Stavin is waiting in the underpass, Apex isn't necessarily granted a good kill for his troubles here. But while all this is happening, Apex realizes, look, if Magisk is playing so heavy onto connector, our palace swing and our ramp swing might be a little bit clouded. So I'm going to move back over to CT and just play a little bit more of an anchor position, so that when the hit does come, especially after that smoke drops from Heroic, I'll be there to anchor. So he moves all the way to Ninja, and then he can kind of just sit here and wait, right? ZywOo is watching through Palace, and they've read everything that they needed to. They understand that there's a person underpass with that Molotov. They understand that there's a hit coming from Ramp, there's a hit coming from Palace, and then they can just solidify themselves with Apex just having to go one and done, right? So they're aware. Magisk gets the drop onto Stavin moving up from underpass. Apex slides back into Firebox, gets an easy kill onto default rather, and gets the kill onto Shush coming from Palace. And this allows ZywOo to pivot back and take the fight to whoever's coming from ramp. And then again, that's how it goes, where there's a very ping-pong affair with Vitality CT side, and they always are in a way trading the other player out and making sure that there is no way for them to lose their man advantage or an even man situation. So this is why I think Vitality is so good. They're so regimented, but they also have that aggressive flair to them that I loved so much in their 2021 roster, that I think that they can really meld very well going into 2022. But I want to talk about the little bit of a comms collapse that I've been noticing throughout mostly their T side. and why I think that it is the main thing that is hindering Vitality from becoming as successful and assertive on the T side as they are on the CT side of things, right? So here ZywOo decides to go aggressive down in mid, and once he gets a little bit of a tag on Acadian, it really feigns the presence that perhaps Vitality is going to mid to late round aggress down into mid, and all of the A players gravitate to connector and basically try to get Cadian out of that rock and a hard place, that it's a very A-centered hold, right? But while all this is happening, Magician crew are waiting for the Molotov to extinguish itself and then actually immediately A execute, because they're trying to show so much presence mid, obviously. So when they do that, when they reflash into connector heroic, that's when Vitality decide to scrim out with Magisk looking for an entry, and then they throw out a smoke CT, especially after the fact that they don't see anything. They get a Molotov down into Firebox, or sorry, into Default, and then under Shadow, and then I think they get a little bit of utility off onto connector as well. So they've gotten all of this space, and it'll honestly be topped off with an outstanding entry here from ZywOo, especially after all of the space that's been taking. It's like you've got basically have the round on a silver platter. And ZywOo essentially says, okay, they've seen me. I'm going to double back to mid now. And I'm expecting you guys with your one smoke to smoke off connector and then basically take the fight CT and get the plant and so on and so forth. And then you have your failsafe as ZywOo coming in from Cat, and then the round's in your favor, right? But that isn't to be here, because the communication after Apex actually tries to scrim out of the smoke and find a kill, is Shusher is smarter than that and finds the pick onto him. There's a flubbed Molotov here onto I guess I believe that's Dupree here. Is that Dupree? Yes, Dupree. And once that happens, you've kind of given away information that there are two players at least still sitting on ramp. And with that one nade and the little bit of idea, that inkling of an idea that Heroic has, they can just re-aggress into ramp now, right? And that kind of screws over Vitality, especially if they're trying to throw down utility that's so important to get back onto the site. So what they do here is Masuta gets tagged as well. So you've basically given up the entire jig of your game, and you try to kind of back out, and now there isn't really a good understanding of what they want to do. And now this flash comes through, but before the flash pops, now you have Dupree and Dupree tucking in for the flash. You have Masuta wide swinging. They're not on the same page here. So whatever fight that Heroic decides to take, be it a good timing or not, you're screwed as Vitality, because you're just having in any situation it's only one man taking a fight, not two, which would honestly favor them, especially with the lesser weaponry that Heroic has. So they get the kill onto Masuta, then Refresh gets the kill onto Magisk far ramp, and then Tessas gets the kill onto Dupree, right? So it all falls apart, and then this is all ZywOo's plan to come in late mid and take more guns away down connector, and it all falls apart, right? He doesn't get to activate his mid presence, and Vitality lose the round. And it's largely, a big part of it is the missed Molotov, yes, but the communication to actually properly trade and the protocols there were definitely off, and I think that that's something that Vitality needs to work on, and I'll jump into it one more round that really shows the culmination of something like that. So I think this round in particular is like the culmination of Vitality as a whole, and why I think that they have the capability of becoming the best team in the world, but also have the chance to probably hover around the 8th to 10th position. So it's still very good for them, but I know they made this team to win championships, and that's the metric that we're kind of giving for them. So it starts off with Apex and Magisk taking banana as usual, but it also showcases Magisk going a little bit more aggressive than he usually does, and take all of Car through these double nade usage and beating the Molotov that Heroic decides to throw. And so this allows even Sandbags control and another smoke to be deployed by the B anchor of Heroic, and this is very good for Vitality. Now they can double back to brackets, take that piece of map control, and then decide as to where they want to go from there. So this is very stock standard T-side aggression that Vitality and other European teams have shown, but the fact that they have such good protocols to make this a thing this early on in their tenure shows that there are a lot of good signs for things to come. They're not even going into this brackets control without stuff already in their favor. You have Dupree already sitting in Boiler. You have, I believe, Masuta on his way to come down to trade in Boiler as well. And then you have that little bit of a mid-prong to show in brackets, right? So even though there's this 3-man setup, they're very, very well equipped to deal with this. So Apex throws down, sorry, not Apex, but some other teammate decides to throw the smoke down onto the Arch side of things, and Apex gets that key piece of information that there is a player Arch. And while all this is happening, ZywOo decides to say, okay, well, we now know there's somebody Arch. Let's see if I can find anything down lane. So he moves up lane after that smoke comes down from his teammate. I believe that was Dupree. And then he gets the kill onto Refresh, an absolutely stunning one. But the trade, again, there's a one person tucked in a porch. But there's another fail-safe in Dupree. Regardless of when that timing of the Molotov is going to come down, there still is going to be that trade. And then Vitality can back off. You now have a man advantage situation. You have brackets control. You have Magisk pushed up all the way to Car. And you've also made the B anchor lose all of his utility. You have all the tools in your tool shed to win this round very easily. You should never be dropping this round if you're Vitality. But how do they lose this round? Let's actually see how it plays out. They're able to get the bomb back. They double back to B. They have good amounts of utility. They smoke off they smoke off CT, and they don't have a smoke for coffins, but that doesn't really matter, right? They want to basically take control of the site at this point, and they'll do so. But one small thing that they do is forget to check CT. They forget to check the boost, and Stalvin pounces, and luckily there's a good trade here. But with the lack of smoke in coffins and the lack of communication as to who is going to be planting the bomb at this point, pandemonium ensues. Dupree and Magisk are both looking at ruins when there really should only be one person watching ruins while the other person tries to plant the bomb, right? There's barely any time here. And Apex is busy looking back at Banana, and the time runs out. They essentially, even though they have all this control, that one kill just absolutely throws them into a dizzying spiral, and they lose the round, right? So, outstanding fundamentals to take all that map control and understand how to break up the defense with good amounts of utility and great amounts of firepower. But at the end of the day, the communication wasn't on point, and this is the one thing that I was talking about as one of my big storylines. Will a European or international team overcome the differences of not speaking in their native language and win a major championship, win big titles? We've seen that with FaZe, but this is an even bigger project that I think will be very interesting to see how it plays out. I definitely think Vitality has what it takes to become a championship winning team, and I think definitely after seeing them at Blast and seeing them here at Katowice, I think they definitely have the chance of becoming a world championship winning team. However, there is a lot of kinks to work out before the major that I'm not sure if they'll actually be able to iron it out in time. And I think EPL will be a great litmus test because they don't necessarily have an easier group. They have ENCE, which is a dark horse to really try to shake things up. You have Furia that's on the up and up, especially now that they have time to integrate Safe more in. They showed very good signs at ESL Challenger. You have teams like, I believe, Virtus Pro, or Outsiders in this case, who will be attending, and they're obviously a very, very good team. They looked like the dark horse to win Katowice as for my money, and they showed very, very good signs at ESL Challenger, right? Obviously taking the tournament there. But this is not going to be an easy feat for them by any means. And for that, for this group to play out in the way they want to, they're going to have to iron out a lot of things, and perhaps they'll have that slow start that they've shown. But if not, then we might see something very, very scary from Vitality that we haven't seen in another team in a long time, right? Combining the regimented Danish Counter-Strike that Zonic has pioneered alongside the flair of French Counter-Strike with ZywOo and Apex, and obviously Masuta as well. And if they're able to harness that cohesion, then the sky's the limit for this team, and I definitely think that they have everything that they can do to win EPL or go deep. Oh, and I can't even believe I forgot. They have FaZe as well, the winners of Katowice. So absolutely stacked group, and there's a very, very obvious world where Vitality might not make it if they're not on their A game. So again, watch out for Group B content. I'm very excited to see how this unfolds because there's a lot to unpack throughout this group, and Katowice definitely showed that there's potential for every single game in this group to fire on all cylinders. So watch out for Group B. I will be back with Group C content soon enough. I have a couple things still working on beyond that, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. I know I've said that a couple times now, but I've had some delays for those kinds of ideas, but I will definitely be on top of that soon. If you want to join my Patreon, patreon.com/paladinsalliance, support me there. You have opportunities to get any pro demo reviews, your demo reviews, or even the Patreon discussions at the end of every month. So if that is all from me, I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.